each and every week. We look forward to these just to help become more enlightened, more enriched, more filled up. And today's guest is one that I was chatting with behind the scenes. She's super fascinating. We have had her on before, and the topic today is the process of change. What, why, and how to make it work. And I think some of the different techniques that she will share will be unique and different, maybe something you haven't tried before. So get your pen and paper, get ready to take notes. I am going to be taking notes right alongside you. If you are new today, my name is Jenny Anchondo, and I am here as your host and moderator today. So here's the lay of the land. Over on the right side, there is a little chat bubble. You can click on that and expand it. You will see messages from Sarah as they sort of disseminate information, if there's links or details that you need to know about, if you're looking for the YouTube channel, that sort of thing. This is also important because this is where you have a voice. This is where the session is about you. So we provide these so that you can really dive in deep and ask the speaker any kind of question. And if you're intimidated in a group in person, this is the perfect time because you don't even have to show your face. You can just type it in the chat, anything that comes up. So what we'll be doing throughout the session is I will be taking notes and coming up with questions on my end, but more importantly, I'm going to be monitoring the chat for your questions because I want this to be a really valuable, jam-packed hour for you. So who is Anna? She is passionate about helping high achievers integrate their willpower with their soul power. So we're going to find out what exactly that means. But really, in terms of a practical sense, she has several different advanced certifications, including she's a certified wellness practitioner. She's a sensory specialist. She's a level 3 Reiki provider, self-talk speaker and trainer. She is a life coach. She is a vibrational therapist. She really focuses on empowering people to reclaim their lives and engage in active living through a whole being approach. This woman never stops learning and never stops educating herself, which I think is really interesting. And then when we go back to, some of that traditional education, she holds a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, a master's degree in occupational therapy, and a master's of business administration. And like I said, she never stops learning, never stops educating. She is finishing her PhD in performance psychology. Now, typically I like to go through these bios and pick out like a couple of interesting little tidbits to throw out there, but there's so many, I have to just keep throwing out these. She has been a guest speaker on some really big platforms, you guys. American Airlines Professional Women in Aviation, Texas Autism Conference, MOPS International. I've been a part of MOPS. It's awesome. Mothers of Multiples, the Lions Club International. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. Anyway, she is Anna Hernando, and she is speaking to us today on the process of change. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. Anna, you take it away. We are so excited for today.
Okay, well, I'm glad all of you guys could join us. This topic is really, really big, and you guys know this is a lunch and learn. So I'm going to go through the information, but just know they're going to drop my email address into the chat. Feel free to email me any questions, or if you feel like you want to go into depth a little bit more on this information. We'll do that because I've got 45 minutes to share this with you. So I'm just really going to get going. And so this topic is the process of change, what, why, and how to make it work for you. Change occurs through our entire lives. And most of you on here are on this for business. So we're going to kind of take this towards the business end. We've already gone through my ABCs and all the fun little accolades. And so today I have 4 objectives for you. One is that I want you to be able to identify Prochaska's 6 stages of change, and then Robert Dillight's logical levels of change. And so when you're out in the whole world, if you've ever come across a behavioral situation where they're wanting you to change your behavioral, say you've gone to the doctor and now you're pre-diabetic and they're like, you need to do some changes. Well, a lot of the strategies they put you on to help you change your lifestyle is Prochaska's 6 stages of change. But they really do help us as business owners and entrepreneurs, or people even working in a business, to understand those changes, because they might be where we are ourselves personally, or they might be where our coworker is, or our partner, or our friend. And it really helps us have a bigger perspective on why this person is struggling with the changes that need to be made, but also why we might be struggling with communicating to them the importance of achieving the change that's needed. And then Robert Dilt's logical levels, that's from the neuro-linguistic programming. And that's going to be more along the lines of how we really want to communicate our change. We have certain things that we need to do when it comes to getting change done successfully. Everybody's been through a change management. COVID was probably the biggest change management for the whole entire world. How many businesses pivoted and made it through? How many did not, right? So we really want to be able to understand change. And that's where it comes into. I want you to be able to understand your role in facilitating the change process. Where do you fall in line with that? What do you need to look at and take a deep examination of yourself, your practices, your behaviors, your disciplines in order to contribute to the change in a positive way? The third thing I want you to do is actually to be able to discuss the relevance of it. You're attending this webinar, but probably your coworkers aren't, or your family members aren't, or whoever else is in your business is not on this. And so you need to be able to, I want you to be able to discuss that with them. Like, why is it important that you are doing this? And then the other one, the last one, is to actually implement these into your life so that when you look at something and say, hey, we need to do some change, you're able to do it. Or when somebody comes to you and says, hey, we have a change management program, we have to do some things, we're implementing a new software, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, right? So look at being able to implement those strategies in a positive way. Change occurs in direct proportion to dissatisfaction. So when we're looking at our businesses, and if you're at the top, you're the owner, you're looking at maybe your return on investment, maybe you're looking at productivity, and you're like, this is not good. And so you have a dissatisfaction. And so you have to implement a change. Maybe you're the employee, right? You're sitting in your cubicle, you're doing your work, and you're thinking, what am I doing this for? I'm working harder than this person over here. I'm not getting anything, and you're dissatisfied. So you either need to go and see how you can grow within your business, the company that you're with, or you need to explore other avenues for you to go find another job because you're dissatisfied. And even as a company, if you're an owner or higher up, a manager, you want to look at that. If your employees are dissatisfied, they're going to make a change. Okay? So this is why it's important to look at how satisfied are you? So Robert Dilts, like I said, he is one of the fathers of neurolinguistic programming, and these are the levels of change that he has. It's vision, then identity, then values and beliefs, capabilities, behavior, and environment. Most of the time what happens in business is the environment is questionable, it's unstable, it's competitive, and so there is more of a reaction to the environment. And so with the logical levels, what you're really going to do is you're going to start with, we know that we all exist in an environment. We all know that we exist in a business environment, but we want to look at the vision. Okay. Perfect case, COVID, everything was shut down. The environment was not conducive. Things were closed. The environment was done. So if we were at the mercy of change for just the environment, businesses were not going to survive. Businesses that had a vision of what they were going to look like on the outside of the pandemic, at the end of the pandemic, how they were going to capture market share or how they were going to adjust and pivot for their employees, those are the ones that survived. But the ones that stayed in the murky environment and only saw the murky environment did not filter as well. And so this is why we're looking at the levels of change. So first, what do we do with the vision? This is where you want to start. Doesn't matter where you are in your business. What is your vision? What is the desired outcome that you are looking for? If you are an employee, don't think, well, that doesn't apply anything to me because, I'm not the one that's leading it. No, you need to understand the vision. Where does my company want to go? Where's this project going? What's the end result of this? And then what does that mean to me? Do I even want to be a part of this vision? Okay. If you haven't seen, there's of course, Jeff Bezos put out his own documentary on Amazon, and he had the vision of owning the largest bookstore. I know some of you are thinking, it's not a bookstore. It started as a bookstore in 1996. He had the vision of having the largest bookstore without owning any books and being on the internet. Think back to 1996. Were a lot of people shopping online? Were a lot of people doing this? No. But he knew his desired outcome. He had this vision. And he was not letting anybody else welter him from his vision. He held true to his vision. The second level is identity. What is required for you to become what you want? So in Jeff Bezos, he did not know supply chain. Some of you might think, really? No, he didn't know supply chain. He didn't know books. He didn't know any of that. But in order for his vision to take place, he had to become very knowledgeable on the business of books, sales, customers, internet, and coding. So you have to identify, what do I need to become in order to achieve my vision? Okay. So there's a lot of different things that go into this. It's not what do I need to do? What do I need to become? If you are thinking, well, some of the people that I met at the SARE conference, and it's coming up, so if you haven't registered, don't forget to put that on your calendar. When I attended, there were a lot of people who were doing a business, right? I met great people, a young lady who started her bookkeeping business, and she was a bookkeeper. And I said, well, what is your dream for your vision? To make money at bookkeeping. That's not a great vision. That's not something that's really like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the number one person who manages books for people of small businesses that have less than 25 employees. Okay. How do I become that? How do I become that? I go places where people who own those businesses are. I connect to SARES through their small business ventures. I go around to other people who have been to this conference and see how many employees they have. I become this person already. So that's where you have to identify as this person. Not, I'm just a bookkeeper. I own the top rated bookkeeping company in the Metroplex that services companies with 25 employees or less. Do you feel that difference? It's a lot more powerful when I own this identity of already what I'm manifesting, what I'm desiring to have the outcome. We need to take a look at your values and beliefs. Now, in my previous SARE conversations, one of them was on limiting beliefs. And so, what do you believe about yourself? If you don't believe that you can become the number one book keeper in the Metroplex, you're not. If you don't believe you're going to own the largest bookstore in the world, Jeff Bezos, then you're not. If you believe that you can do it, you will muscle through all of the other things that'll happen to you. What do you believe about your industry? Do you believe that you can't get market share? What do you believe about your team? Do you believe you have the right team together? If you don't believe you have the right team together, get the right team together. You don't have to feel obligated to hold on to somebody because you're doing them a favor or you feel bad. You're actually doing them a disservice. If somebody doesn't fit your team, if somebody doesn't believe in your vision, if somebody doesn't identify with what it is that you are trying to do, they're not going to help you get there. And so it's only fair to yourself and only fair to them to sever ties in a loving way. But you have to believe that there is space for you. I hear a lot of times when I'm coaching people that are starting a business, they'll tell me, well, do you think the market's saturated? Do you know how many life coaches there are out there? There are tons of life coaches. Do you know how many fitness coaches there are there? There are tons of fitness coaches. If you believe that your industry is saturated, then you just need to close out and go to a different industry. But I will tell you, there is a customer for everybody's business. I will give you the perfect example. I just came back from El Paso. I was there for Easter holiday, and I was completely amazed how every shopping street corner had a nail salon, a burger hut, a taqueria, and a wings place to get wings. And then on the other one was a gym. They have Planet Fitnesses all over the place, and every single one I went to, no matter what time I went, was full. So if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I want to build a gym right next to a Planet Fitness in El Paso. Do you think the market's saturated?" I'd be like, "No." Open it, right? It's what do you believe about your industry? And it matters because belief is what is the catalyst to everything. The only person that holds us back, truthfully, is ourselves. And I'm sure Sarah has the other conversation or the webinar that I did on belief, but that's the biggest part. What are your values and beliefs? You never want to go into business or work for a company that has you compromise your values, who you are inside. This is actually what my dissertation for my PhD is on. It's on moral distress, and it's where people tend to work for companies and then start to get sick inside because there is a conflict in their personal values and the company's values. And that really starts to take its toll. So what do you stand for? What are your values? Okay. And all of these come into change, every single one of these. Because if we're going to make a change, what we're going to want to do the things that align with our values and beliefs that demonstrate our identity and then match with our vision. Because if we don't have our values and beliefs aligned with our vision, we will not get there. And then we want to look at our capabilities. What skills do you have currently? And then what skills do you need to be successful at? Let's go back to the Jeff Bezos thing, right? He literally said, I don't know supply chain. I don't know books. I know that I want people to go online and buy. I don't even know how to do the coding part of that. So he didn't have those skills. The skill that he had was being able to network and sell and get the investors and hold the vision which he shared with his entire team. And then he needed to develop skills. He had to get better at certain things. Now, in case you don't know, he's valued at $200 billion. That's his value. Clearly, he has the skills of supply chain, of coding, of customer base. But he had to look at and listen to other people to understand, how am I going to be successful? One of his little stories is that he went to Barnes and Nobles and approached them and said, "Hey, I've got this idea. Won't you come on?" And they said, "Well, what's the name of your business?" And he said, "Relentless.com." And they were like, "Well, that's a horrible name." That's a horrible name. So he didn't even have the right skills to attract his customers with a name that was representative of the values and the beliefs, and that would get him to the vision. His vision was to be the largest bookstore in the world. And he came up with the name Amazon because the Amazon is the largest river in the world and it feeds the masses. And that's was what his true vision was. So you see how they come together. But if you don't have the certain skills, you can learn them. Sarah has a vast amount of classes, courses, resources that you can tap into. So as you're looking at, here's my vision, here's my identity, my values and beliefs, and this is my skill set I have. I'm missing some skill set. I would strongly encourage you to reach out to Sarah and look at what they have to offer you, because there is a vast amount of skills that you can learn through them and with the resources that they have at minimal cost at many times. So look into what they have. And then we look at behavior, right? What habits do you need to break and what habits do you need to establish? Notice this was not number one, right? Vision is the key. If I want to have the number one bookkeeping business in the Metroplex, but I come home from my day job and I binge watch TV, I'm not really going to get there, right? So that's definitely a habit that I need to break. If I'm somebody who I'm working as an employee and I want to get to a management level, right? After work, me going to just hang out at the local bar and happy hour is not going to get me to management level. But if I break that habit, if I see that habit and I break that habit, I can take that same time and invest in an online course. I can take one of the resources that Sarah offers. I can look into LinkedIn Learning. There are so many things that can help build our skill set, and many of them are at such a low cost. I'm just amazed at how much some of them just don't even cost anything. It's almost like the internet's a vast library. And then what habits do you need to establish? Do I need to shift my schedule altogether? Do I need to get up earlier in the morning instead of sleeping until 9? Because if I get up earlier in the morning, I can take care of quite a few things. And then at 9, I can be ready to go. So looking at your behavior in what am I doing on a daily basis? The other part is, how am I treating people? What am I saying to myself? What is my behavior about that? When something happens or I make a mistake, do I beat myself up over it? That's a habit that we need to break. We don't want to beat ourselves up over it. We want to look at it as, oops, that's a learning opportunity. What did I learn? And how can I not make that mistake again? And that also is a positive habit of reflection on what you might had a mistake on, and then make the adjustment. And that's a very big thing. Most businesses, really big businesses that you can see in Good to Great and all this, they actually look at the mistakes that they made and they reflect on them. They just don't make a mistake and then react. They look at them and say, okay, where did we miss the mark on that? Where did we go wrong with that? And so it's really important to look at your habits, good and bad, and the ones that you need to adapt. And then the last part of Dilt's model is the environment. So what changes in your environment need to be made, and what influences will aid your success. So we all, like I said, had the pandemic happen. And the big thing was, it's like, oh, we got to shut everything down because the environment is contaminated. We want to contain all the germs. But then it came into, oh my gosh, how do we keep businesses going? So the businesses, we had to say, okay, the environment is, we need to give people equipment at home. We need to send them equipment at home. We need to help them be successful and be able to work at home. If I'm going to have the vision that my business is going to be successful post-pandemic, then I need to have people have some equipment at home so that they can continue to work. Right? So those are his levels. So most of the time when we're looking at change, people react to the environment, and that's why things change. They react to the environment. And so this is the opposite of what he's saying. He's saying that we want to look at vision. Our vision has to be the biggest component, and strong and unwavering. Then identifying with who do we need to become to create the vision that we're seeing. We have to look at what are the values and the beliefs, our capabilities and behavior, and see that smaller part is the environment. We don't want to react to an environment. We want to respond and move through it. And that comes from keeping our vision strong. So that's DILTS. Now we'll move into what's called the trans-theoretical model of change. It's Prochaska. And so he has these components. It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then what's called termination or relapse. And I'll go through them for you. So in pre-contemplation, this is where you want to think about yourself, employees, relationships. In a pre-contemplation, when there needs to be a change, a person does not perceive a problem. In pre-contemplation, this is the person who you would say is oblivious to something going on. They're non-responsive, apathetic to confrontation of the need to change. They deflect responsibility of problems or issues. This is somebody who will blame somebody else for their mistakes. Or, I don't read well because my third grade teacher, didn't sit down with me and do the flashcards, right? Deflecting the responsibility. They work around the problems, they avoid it. This is that traditional denial. This is the person who, when COVID was going on and everybody else was like masked, and then they're like, stay home and work. This is the person who still went to work and was like, where is everybody? Okay, that's pre-contemplation. And when you can recognize somebody in pre-contemplation, you want to be able to focus on building the relationship with the individual. Remember, they're in denial. So they're gonna be like, what? So you just want to be like, hey, this is what happened to me. I'm concerned about you, right? You want to ask them some open-ended questions. Hey, where did you think everybody was? you know, everybody's been kind of working from home. And since they work around the problem, you want to help them work around the problem on other issues, on things that they're open to work on, right? So it's kind of like parallel working and just start providing them information. So my husband and I also own a trucking company. And we were having some pretty big change. We were actually moving offices. And for those of you who've experienced that, it's a pretty big deal. And there's a lot of things that have to take place in order for that to happen. And so we had to provide a lot of information of to when are we going to be moving, when we think we're going to be moving, because we were building and we didn't know exactly. So we had to just keep providing a lot of information, but we also shared vision. We showed pictures of where the building was going to be and what it was going to look like. And we continually spoke about these every week. And we had pictures of them up in the current office so that we could get people out of that pre-contemplative state by providing the information and also help them build what their role was going to be. Contemplation is that they're aware a problem exists and they'll talk about change, but they actually argue against change. This is the person who typically says, but we've always done it this way, right? We don't know anybody who says that. They'll rationalize and minimize the problem and even the need to change. We don't need to change. We've been doing it this way. Not a problem at all. It takes a few more minutes, but it's okay. We don't need to get this new software. It's all right. We can do it this way. It works. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? They become anxious when attempting a new behavior and it doesn't appear to work as it should. So, oh, you have me this new software. Okay, well, I logged in. Guess what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? So that's the contemplation stage. So we want to look at, they're really looking at pros and cons are equal. And so, well, this is a perfect example of the time to facilitate self-efficacy. Use those open-ended questions for individuals, verbalize their problem and their intentions around it. Tell me a little bit, why are you having, what seems to be the problem? Why do you continue to want to do it this way? Tell me your process. Help me understand why you feel the way you've been doing it for the last 15 years is more efficient and a better use of your time than utilizing this software. Okay. And if you're in a place where you can provide some self-assessments for your team, you can help identify their values, beliefs, and strengths. If you know somebody who does DISC is an assessment. You can have them come in, you can have a DISC assessment, and that'll help identify communication styles as well as help you identify some values and strengths, but also needs. Most of the time, the resistance to change is really because we're not communicating to someone in the way that they need to be communicated to. And so when they're in the contemplative stage, we want to help them identify reasons to change and risks of staying the same. So for example, with the one that I just said about the software, we say, okay, so you're telling me you spend, 4 hours processing payroll because you do it manually. So I want to show you over the next 3 payroll cycles how if we utilize this software, let's just see how much time we'll save. Let's just see how much more efficient it will be. What tends to happen because companies are trying to move at a fast pace, they buy the software, they give it to the software, and they give them like one tutorial. That doesn't work. So we have to slowly work through people, hold their hand, not forever, but just say, over the next 3 pay periods, I'm going to sit with you and we're going to do it. And then we'll look at how much time did we save. I use this example because we actually did this in our trucking company, and we went from 4 hours to 30 minutes. Talk about saving time, energy, and money, right? So now this person had time to free up and do other tasks that they were responsible for. And then they came to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we do payroll this way. I know I was a little like not happy about it at first, but I used to dread Tuesdays and I would just be sick about it. Monday night, I was up all night stressed over it. Tuesdays were like my nightmare day of the week. I'm really glad we did that, right? So then they can start to see it. In preparation, this stage is where people recognize and they're ready to make a change. Many times they'll seek outside help and ask for it. They'll take ownership of their negative behavior and they'll actually see that the pros will outweigh the cons. Okay. So this is that person who comes to you. If you're a manager or if you are a business owner and someone comes to you and says, hey, you know what, I was thinking about this, and we could probably do da 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 if we changed XYZ. So this is somebody who's already, they've got your vision as a leader, and they've come down and said like, hey, how can I contribute to that? I've identified, I've seen it, I can contribute, and they're ready to help facilitate this change. So you want to explore all the options that are available. You want to identify the benefits and the consequences to help them with their idea and where it fits in the whole company. Provide information, and then also help them, set some goals, some specific goals. So if you have a performance review that you're doing with somebody's not in a good space and you're having to put them on a performance improvement plan, you can look at where they are in this change process on how receptive they're going to be to the performance improvement plan. And if they're at that stage in preparation and they come to you and say, okay, I think I can do these things, then you're going to sit with them and help really develop that plan. You want to identify those strategies and resources to help them overcome any potential barriers. We're in a state where there are so many different things going on with people, and we don't know what goes on with people behind closed doors. We don't know half the time what they're dealing with on a personal level. So in the process of change, if you're identifying, where they are, and you can come to them and just look at, okay, what are some other barriers that I'm not aware of? What do you see? Because I don't see all the time what you see. So what are some of those barriers, and how can we get over them together? Action. The stage of action is definitely there. That's engaged in the change. They're doing it, right? Can be small on their own end, seeks out the leadership support, and they really work out the plan. When you're in the action stage, you're just having them come in and say, hey, I'm ready to go. You've told me my objectives. You told me what I got to do. I'm here. Or they're also, I've made out my plan and I'm doing it. I don't need anybody to make sure that I've done it. I'm excited about the change and I am fully engaged. So in that action stage, when you're seeing that person come in and engage, it's a good thing, but also sometimes people who are on the action stage can kind of go over and kind of get off the path. So you want to make sure that you're introducing the strategies for them to practice and implement anything that they might be experiencing on that behind the closed doors for change adherence. In other words, they might be all gung-ho all of a sudden, but then when they get into it and they see, oh, this is a little more difficult, they might not cope with it too well. Okay. So you want to use activity analysis to help guide small changes. So again, like I said, perfectly with the payroll, hey, let me see how you're doing it, right? Many times if we're managers or higher up, we don't know how people are doing their day to day unless you've given them specific work instructions. And I have found, even if you've done that, they will make up their own stuff anyway. So you don't know exactly how they're doing their day to day work. And so it might not be as beneficial as you think, or it might actually be really beneficial for some of the things that you've encountered. So they might change a cell on an Excel spreadsheet and you don't really understand why, but they have learned that if they upload it into the software, it doesn't compute. But they didn't bother to tell anybody else, right? So we need to make sure you're communicating that. In the action stage is the part where you can teach them new skills. Teach them new communication styles, teach them new ways to use software, teach them new ways to relax at work, right? Have more of a wellness component. You're going to adjust any of the plan as needed, pivot, turn, change. Like I said with Jeff Bezos, he changed his name 3 times before he got to Amazon. 3 times. And then so, you're going to adjust your plan. You didn't change your vision. The vision is the same, but you're adjusting the plan. Does that make sense? You still want to go to Florida for vacation, but there's a hurricane that's flooded Louisiana. You've already invested in your beach house. You've already got everybody else going. You're not saying, I'm out, we're not going. No, you look at the map and you go, okay, we can't go through Louisiana from Texas. We're going to go up and over, right? So you change your plan. And then you want to look at, you're going to have your team identify any extrinsic rewards for progress. Now, I'm a firm believer on intrinsic rewards, but extrinsic rewards really do help people look at things, have like a little bit carrot at the end, We don't always want to rely on them. We really want to make sure that people are looking at how they get fulfilled and reward internally. But externally can be, hey, you guys know what? Once we make this big move over to the software and we've hit the next objective at the end of the month, we're going to have a bowling party, right? Because we do have to celebrate people in their accomplishments, their achievements, but also their effort. Many times we always just want to look at the end result, but we have to really do um, admire and look at people and oh, I've lost the word. Congratulate them on their effort if it's genuine and true, because that little bit of recognition on my effort is going to help me stay engaged. And then maintenance is, people who are maintenance state, they're aware of triggers to past behavior or choices, implementing strategies to maintain their progress. They recognize change as a process and they can see that there's long-term effects. And then they take ownership of their choices moving forward. Now that we've made whatever XYG changes in the business, if I now do this tomorrow, is that going to keep us moving towards the vision? Is that going to help us get there, or is that going to take me back? Perfect example is like we've implemented a new customer service system, and you've trained everybody on answering the phones, and that we're going to smile and we're going to greet everybody in a great way. Everybody's got a little mirror on their desk so they can see that they're smiling at people, because believe it or not, you can hear a smile on the other end of the phone. So they're looking at it and they're talking. Well, then, maybe someday the mirror falls off and they answer the phone in a bad mood. Well, that's taking me back. But quickly they say to the customer, oh, I apologize. I did not mean to speak to you that way. Oh, let me take a deep breath. Okay, how you doing? Let's get started. So they immediately take ownership of it and just keep going with it. In maintenance, they've developed that self-efficacy. I'm looking at me. I'm saying, okay, I have power. I have control as an employee, as a team member, and I can see where my choices, everything that I do is contributing to the vision. If I'm the CEO and I'm the business owner, I'm doing the same types of thing. I'm saying, okay, what beliefs and values and capabilities do I have going forward that are keeping me in the same mode for my vision, right? I'm going to be facilitating foresight and actions to take off any of those triggers. Okay, so like I just said, let's say something volatile happens out there, or we have a horrible situation come up. I actually had a detrimental situation this week, and I had to reschedule Raul from SARE. We had an employee have a medical emergency, and it was pretty scary, and I was traveling, and so, okay, what are the triggers there? Could we go back and be like, oh my gosh? No, we are like, okay, what does our protocol say? Because we had created a protocol because it had happened before. So what does our protocol say? And I had new employees who hadn't experienced before, so I had to direct them and provide them with the resources. And then after that, we were able to say, okay, everybody felt good about knowing, here's where I go, here's how I handle it. Man, that sense of accomplishment feels great. And by the way, the person came out okay on the other end of the medical emergency, so we all felt really good. But it took a lot of us. There were 6 people involved making sure that we implemented this plan that we had set forth based on a change that had happened a couple years ago. So we definitely want to provide those resources for support and accountability. And we take a look back. We reflected, okay, how did we handle this? How could we do better? Then we established those intrinsic rewards, right, for a sustaining change. We were just hugging each other. We're just so happy that this happened. So again, we didn't have to have a bowling party, but we had like, oh, this is great job. We're so excited. The feeling that you have from accomplishment. Now here's one of the components of the change model, and it's termination, and that's complete freedom from long-standing problems. No experience of any temptations, regardless of the situation or trigger, or any return to the previous behavior. This is where termination is we've achieved the vision. We are the largest bookstore in the world, right? We are the #1 bookkeeper for small businesses under 25 employees. We have gotten there. Because once we've gotten there, now we create a new vision and we move forward. A relapse, a person can have a slip, a business can have a slip at any level, and that engages in a different but equally troubling behavior. This is where you can see business that They had a bad round such as COVID, and they could not recover. They just couldn't see how they could recover. They didn't have the vision to recover. The endemic has been signed. We're post 2.5 years now. So the pandemic is there. So if anybody says, well, the pandemic, no, that's gone. What's your vision forward? And that's where we want to be going. So I'll wrap it up there with Jeff Bezos and his termination. He became the number one bookstore in the world, right? And then what did he do? You don't just buy books on Amazon. Movies, you have music, you have anything and everything, furniture, cars, I'm sure at some point. So he didn't stop. His vision was there and it grew bigger. Somebody who is in a termination mindset, they're going to be helping that team identify healthy ways to celebrate the success. If somebody's calmed down, again, that's somebody who's you're going to need to review your plan, your strategies, help them adjust and implement anything else. It's not so much that they've fallen completely off. It's okay, we didn't get to where we need to go. We've relapsed back into some old patterns of behaviors. Maybe we're talking ugly to employees or team members, or we're answering the phone ugly again. Let's sit down and review our strategies and our plan. We need to adjust and we need to go forward. But also in this stage, we want to ask, what triggered you to start talking ugly to our customers on the phone again, right? What happened to trigger you to go back to the old customer service instead of continuing with the one that we have? And that's where you want to start when you identify someone's at the relapse stage. Usually at this point, if somebody does relapse in your business, it's really because something personal happened and they just need that one manager, team member, CEO come in and say, hey, what happened? And they just need to be heard, and then they can get right back into it. So again, my objectives today were that you would have the 6 stages of change and Robert Dilt's logical levels, and you can understand how you're going to facilitate those change processes. Discuss them with people in your cohorts or your group or your employees, your management team, so that you guys can align and look at optimal outcomes. Remember, if you're the leader, you have to look at the vision. And if you're the CEO, you're creating the vision. If you're the manager, you need to really understand your CEO or your owner's vision and buy into it. If you don't agree with their vision, then you have the conversation with them. But ultimately, you're going to be going where that driver is taking you, and that's upper leadership. And if you are upper leadership, you need to make sure you're communicating all the way down to every single person in your business or even in your family of what your vision is, so that they can understand where you're going and they can buy into it, because then everything else will fall into place. And so then the other part was being able to implement those strategies and facilitate that positive change for successful habits. And so it really comes back to, what do you see? And when I say vision, I don't mean just like, hey, yeah, I see that I'm the number one. If you go, if I would encourage you to watch the documentary, because there's a scene where he's trying to find the name and he comes up with Amazon, and he visualizes the river, the Amazon River, and he just equates that into his business. So when you say your vision is this, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What do you hear, right? All of these things go into creating your vision. When you are the number one of my other clients, she's looking to be the number one international provider of oncology rehab courses. When she identified that is her vision, she immediately said, okay, I identify myself as the provider. I am an oncology rehab specialist. And it immediately shifted everything else. This is what I believe in. This is why I believe in sharing this information. I value people's lives, and there's so much we can do on a rehab level for people who are enduring cancer. And she went through those levels. Okay, what is my capabilities? I have all of these things in my business. I'm really good at oncology and rehab. I'm really bad at marketing. So we put together some marketing things for her to do. And once she's ready, she's going to hire on some marketing people. So it's not that I have to learn everything and have my capabilities at everything. Remember, we looked at what skill sets I have, what I don't have. It doesn't always mean you have to learn everything. You do want to have an awareness of them, but who do you need to bring onto your team? Okay. So we want to look at those different types of things. So that is what I have for you. These are references. If anybody wants to look at some of those, you can take a screenshot if you want, so you can have references to look at, um, or go into. And that's what I have for you guys.
That was incredible. That was wonderful. I was taking notes down here, then I started taking notes on my computer, because I was like, okay, some of these are really, really great. So listen, if you were watching like me and had a lot of questions and things like that, now is the time to put in the chat because we've got a solid 15-minute chunk here. I mean, bravo for timing. She said 45 minutes and she hit 45 minutes. You could work in live TV when you hit times like that. That was awesome. So listen, here's what one of the things that came up for me. Obviously, a lot of people here, we're really focused on business, but some people are still working for somebody, which I know you spoke to that as well. What if going back to the beginning of what you were speaking about, that pre-contemplation person, and it's so is that the right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the one
Pre-contemplation.
who's oblivious.
The one who's oblivious. I'm so glad to have a word for that now because it is sometimes like how, and in a way, sometimes I will have like a twinge of envy for the pre-contemplation person because I think this sounds so blissful. They are so oblivious to what's going on, but then you kind of spin extra wheels to get them going. How do you deal with that person if you're not their boss, you are their colleague, and say you're working on a project together?
Right, right. Good point. So one of the things that we talked about was it's the parallel. So if you're working on a project with this person and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're like, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to spend time with them. Try to find that common thing that they are excited about, that um, piece of work that they enjoy, that they might be able to share with you. Many times when somebody is oblivious to there's a need to change over here, but they might have some insight to something completely different, and you can pick up, just listen to little bits of like, and then it can be a simple thing of like, um, it's really cold in here. If we turn the desks to the left, we could get the sunlight. They might just offer that little bit. I mean, you have to kind of really listen to it, or they might even say something like, um, we spend a lot of money on coffee. We should probably, do something else, right? Listen to what little thing that they're willing to talk about and change. And then you can be like, oh, tell me more about that. Or how does that work? Or so then it kind of reduces these barriers that they have that you are directing them. Or then they can say, okay, we doing? What is this project for? Okay, so remember, our company wants to hit so much money, XYZ, or we want to be the premier company of choice for people to work who are millennials, or we want to up our minority business rating, right? So that's what we want to do. So that's really what we're going to do. So, how do you think we could do that? And really turn it into, what do you think we could do? Because remember, they're like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's usually because they don't have that vision. They're not tied into the vision. They don't see how they contribute to the vision. They're like, whatever, paycheck, happy. The other thing is that if they're on your team and you are struggling and you're just like, hey, this person really is just here for that paycheck. Sometimes because of the HR, the workforce we have right now, there's a lot of people that are just there for a paycheck. And so that can be where you can go into your supervisor, your manager, and say, hey, you know what? I'm really working hard with this person. They're on my project. I'm having a little difficulty relating. Do we have a DISC assessment we can give? Because that's going to let you know what kind of communication style is best. And then you can even ask, I just want to share, this is like in high school where there's always the person who doesn't do any of the work and you do all the work, but yet their name goes on the paper anyway. And so you're like, is that this person? Because maybe your boss needs to be aware that that's this person.
Mhm.
And maybe this is the person who's just flying under the radar because they need somebody to check the box, right?
Right.
So having that little bit of conversation, but really looking at where can you build them up in an area that they want so they'll be more receptive to what you're trying to say. Again, the biggest thing is why most people are pre-contemplative is they just don't buy the vision.
Okay. Okay.
That's why that vision is huge.
Yeah, and I do think to your point about it just being a different environment, it's like you mentioned the bowling party, which I think I don't know, 10 years ago or maybe even 2 years ago, that would have been, yes, so fun. And there feels sometimes in a work world that now people are like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be with you anymore. I do not want to bowl with you. So it's
Yeah.
just interesting. You're right, like that things are evolving. So I guess we're just constantly picking up on what is motivating to the people around me.
Yeah, we're in an interesting space, in the human resource of like just people in general, behavior wise, what is exciting to people. I mean, when we shut down our pleasure part of our brain, of our bodies for 2.5 years, now we have to kind of ramp it back up. And it is a lot easier for people to just go home and be by themselves and binge. And that's part of the mental health push that's going on right now is we've forced people into a depression suppression, and now we're having trouble getting people out, because I don't know any person who wouldn't rather be at home in their scrubby, sweats sitting around on their couch having a drink versus putting it on. And that's the other part too, is having that dialogue with your coworkers. You don't have to put it on. That's Brene Brown's big work. It's all about vulnerability and transparency. You don't have to fake who you are,
Mhm.
right? And so with the pre-contemplative person, it's, hey, tell me something that's going on with you, and kind of take it away from the project
Yeah.
so that you can connect on that human personal level, and then you can bring it back in. It's almost like, do you want to be my friend first? Do you want to be my colleague first? Can we have some dialogue first? Can we be friends, or friendly?
Hmm.
Or maybe just go have coffee with them. If they don't, the other, a lot of people aren't like bowling out. Although I will tell you, here in Dallas, people are like, "What's my company having a big party?" They're like ready to go back
Yeah.
out there. But it can just be that simple thing of like, hey, let's go have lunch together. I want to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
Because the more we personally connect, the barriers come down, and then we can implement a little bit more of that change that we're looking for, get them to the next level.
Totally. We got a great question in here, or a question in the chat here. They're saying, first of all, kudos to you. That was excellent. I love that you covered from CEO to manager and got everyone involved. And then they're referencing back in the third or fourth slide, the heading read DILTS. What does that mean?
That's his name, Robert Dilts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
No, no, no,
thinking,
it's fine. It's it
that's
is it's an odd last name, I will agree. Dilts is his name.
okay, awesome. Okay, great. Um, so when we're thinking about moving forward with these things, did you mention, I'm like, did we skip over this? Did you say that you have, what kind of company was it?
Oh yeah, my husband and I, we own a transportation company.
Transportation. What does that mean exactly?
So we are a third party logistics company, and we also own a fleet of trucks.
So
So
interesting. Have you done that for a long time?
we're going on 15 years now.
That's considered a long time.
Yeah, we're a minority business, certified business, and and so, I don't, when people ask me to talk, I'm not just the therapist level. I've actually done a lot of training within our company, and a lot of, I ran the HR department, created the HR department, was the IT department, so all these little things with small businesses, you wear multiple hats. And the one thing that enabled me, because, it's also difficult to work with your spouse, the one thing that allowed me is I knew the vision. I bought into the vision. And anytime we had to make a change and we were hitting the wall, then I would go back and I would tell our leadership team, they're not buying the vision. They're not seeing the vision. They're not seeing where they play a role. Because when you have your business, every single person needs to see that they're valued, and that they're important. If you might not think that your janitor is important, but you let your janitor be gone for 2 weeks, and you will find out that that janitor is very important, especially if that commode backs up, because guess who that's you, right? So every single person in your business has to see, what am I working for? Why am I going here? What am I contributing? I'm giving you my effort and my time, my work, and I'm getting a paycheck, but what am I contributing to on a global scale? Like, what's the point?
Right, right. What am I contributing to? Yeah. And so I think people are rediscovering that buy-in after being distanced and being separated and stuff. So it's a rediscovery of why I started in this, whatever business it is to begin with. But I wanted to point that out because, when I read through your bio and introduced you, I think sometimes people think, oh, she just went and got all of these certifications and stuff and perhaps hasn't been in the trenches like me. She doesn't know what it's like to be me. It's easy for all of us to say that, right? So
Yeah.
when you pointed that out about the transportation company, I thought, okay, well, that's really relevant experience to so many of us in having dealt with, just personnel issues and things like that. I'd be curious to hear what your thought is, um, as speaking to the business leaders in navigating a sense of camaraderie and buy-in and excitement about the company, but then also having professional boundaries. I heard somebody say once recently that, like, if they say, we're all like a family here, it's a red flag, run, because that means they expect you to answer the call on the first ring 24/7, and they'll walk all over you, that sort of thing. How do you find a
Yeah.
middle ground?
Well, and it's interesting you say family because that's one of the things that we tell people is that we're a small family owned business. And the whole thing that we say when we tell people, I would tell people when you're in the family, there are times where you're just going to be all great and huggy, and there are going to be times where you're just not, you're going to say, go to your room. There are times where you're going to have conflict. But the point of a family is that we're all integrated and we're all working for one common goal. And if we can stay true to that goal, then everything else will be fine. But when like what you said, right now, ever since email and phones came together, it's like everybody's tangible. It's like anytime you're there. As a leader, it's setting that expectation. If you're hiring on somebody, it's setting that expectation. Now, if you're hiring somebody and you've got them at a salary rate of 35, $45,000, that's not somebody who you can expect that you can call on the weekend because you've got a project you're doing. But if you've got somebody on your team that you're paying $160,000 for, you're going to have that conversation. Hey, I'm paying you this much. And you can bet that if I call you at 8 p.m., I need you to pick up that phone. So you're just being really clear with what are the expectations. And so the other part is that we always encourage everybody to use the calendar. Use your calendar. Put things in the calendar so that we can see it. So if you're off, you've taken the day off, but you didn't tell anybody but only your manager, then you're going to get a call. But if it's on your calendar, everybody can see, oh, hey, they're out of the office today. It really goes back down to how am I communicating? And if you need a break, guess what? You've got to communicate it. You have to come to your leaders and say, "Hey, I need to take the day off. I'm really stressed out. I need to walk away for this. I need a break." But then also if you're a manager looking at that, many employees are not going to come and tell you, "I need a break," because they're going to perceive that they're being seen as weak. But if you recognize, like if you've got a person who's like, you can tell that they have been working 12-hour days for 2 months, you need to go up to them and say, "Hey, you know what? I really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. It's fantastic. My job is also to make sure you don't burn out. So here's a gift certificate to Massage Envy. You can use it if you want or give it to somebody else, but I want you to go take the afternoon off or I want you to take off tomorrow with pay." Right? So you're recognizing that. And that goes back to that, oh my gosh, he values me. They value me. She sees me. What I'm doing is important. I'm killing myself for that. But also, if you've got that employee killing themselves for you, for your company, because they see the vision, you need to go back in and look at, okay, what can I help them do to be more efficient in their job? Because if somebody's working a 12-hour day nowadays with technology, we need to look at, okay, what are they doing that's inefficient? Or I need to get them some help because the volume of sales that we have are just that high that I need to get them another person to help them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm still stuck on take a day off without pay. I've never had that happen
With pay.
in
With pay.
or with pay. I've never had either of them happen.
Yeah.
So
More companies are doing that now because they're recognizing the burnout that's happening from really good employees, really good team players. They're getting burnt out. And, it is difficult to hire new help. We're running into, we had 6 interviews set up for yesterday. We had one person show up. So it's a real thing that's happening. And so we need to make sure that we don't lose the people that we have. And the only way that can happen is if we do externally recognize what they're doing by, hey, you know what, take the afternoon off. Or one of the things that we tend to do is if it's a family, Many times we'll buy like a membership pack for their family and say, hey, you know what? We want you to take off Friday afternoon and take your family and go to the movies or go to the zoo or something like that. We really want to, because we also recognize that the family is the biggest thing, because if the person's working so hard and they have a family at home, they're missing out. And that's causing a lot of stress and tension. So we want to make sure that while we're doing one thing, we're recognizing that the family is important as well. Their support system, whoever is their support system.
Anna, we're going to all come work for you. Thank you so much for your time today. I could keep asking you questions for hours here. The hour flew by. Thank you sincerely for the information. Is there contact info or anything that you wanted to leave with them?
I did let me put it, I think Raul was sending out, but I'll put this is my website. My email address is the best one to reach me on. I put it in the chat and I put it on the first slide, but you guys feel free to reach out and hopefully they'll book themselves to go to the conference. I understand it's great. I'm actually going to be traveling at the time of the conference, so I won't be able to attend this year, but last year was phenomenal. So I hope you guys will attend.
Thank you, Anna. You're incredible. She's a transportation woman, going to be traveling. Totally get it. So the rest of us will be there for Sarah National's 59th annual conference, Creating Gateways to Economic Equity. You guys, it's coming up next month, May 10th. So we hope to see you all there. The replay of this session, maybe you need to send it to a friend, a family member, a colleague, a boss. It will be up on the YouTube channel, which is linked in the chat, next Wednesday. So 6 days from today, and the replays to all the sessions are out there. Listen to them when you have downtime. They're all really, really valuable. Anna, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.